At my birthday dinner, Grandma said, "I'm proud the $1,200 rent money I sent every month kept you safe." I looked at her and said, "I never got a dollar." The whole table went silent while Mom's smile slowly disappeared. My name is Claire Ashby. I am 29 years old. I work as a medical billing specialist at a hospital network in Richmond, Virginia. My job is to find the dollar that doesn't belong where it landed. I look at accounts all day. I trace payments backward. I find the gap between what was sent and what arrived, and I follow that gap until it closes. It is slow, careful work. Most people find it boring. I find it satisfying in the way that only people who like things to be accurate can understand. I moved to Richmond at 22. Small apartment on the north side. Rent was $940 a month, which I paid myself. Late twice in the first year. On time every month after that. My grandmother Florence called every Sunday at 2 in the afternoon. She asked about the apartment. She asked about work. She asked if I was comfortable, if I had enough. I always told her I was managing. I meant it. I was managing. I did not know she thought she was helping. To understand the dinner table, you have to understand the family first. My mother Renee is 54 years old. She is the kind of woman who manages things. She decides where the family goes for holidays. She coordinates the birthday dinners. She knows what everyone needs before they say it, and she delivers that thing in a way that makes sure everyone knows she delivered it. That last part matters. It is not enough for Renee to do the thing. The people around her have to understand that she did it, and that they are the beneficiaries of her effort. Gratitude is part of the arrangement. She has managed Florence for 30 years. Florence is 78. She is my father's mother, which means she and Renee are connected through Martin, my father, who is 56. Martin has spent 30 years agreeing with Renee because disagreeing costs more than it returns. Not because he is weak exactly, because he decided early on that the cost of friction was higher than the cost of silence, and he has honored that decision consistently. I understand that calculation. I made a version of it myself for most of my 20s. Florence and I had our own relationship, separate from the family arrangement. It had started when I was small, before Renee had fully established the management structure. Florence used to call the house and ask for me specifically, not for the family update, just for me. We would talk about school. She would tell me about the city where she'd grown up, a small town in Western Virginia that no longer existed the way she remembered it. She had a way of making the past feel present, of talking about her own life as though it was still happening somewhere, just out of frame. When I left for Richmond, the calls became Sunday calls. 2 in the afternoon, her time. She set a reminder, she told me once, because she didn't want to forget. She never forgot. Every birthday, a card arrived in the mail. Cream envelope. My name in her handwriting. Inside, a note that was never more than a few sentences, but always precisely the right sentences for that year. She had a gift for knowing what I needed to hear without my telling her. I kept every card. I should mention one more thing about Florence before I tell you about the folder. 3 months before the birthday dinner, she said something on a Sunday call that I noticed and filed away. She asked how I liked the new building. I told her I didn't know what she meant. She said, "The new place you moved to. Renee said you'd moved to a bigger apartment." I told her I had been at the same address for 4 years. There was a pause on the line, the kind that means a person is deciding something. Then Florence said, "Oh." I must have gotten confused, and she changed the subject. I thought about it for the rest of the call. I thought about it for a few days after. Then I filed it in the part of my mind where I put things I can't resolve yet. The same part where I had put the school supplies money when I was 13. I did not connect the two things until the folder. The folder connected everything. Sunday calls that Renee did not know about in detail. Birthday cards with handwriting inside that got shakier every year, but stayed precise in what it said. Florence had a way of asking questions that meant she actually wanted the answer, not the answer that sounded right. She would ask about my apartment and actually listen to what I said about it. She would ask about work and follow up the next week on what I had told her. She remembered things. She held the details of my life in her head the way grandmothers do when they are paying attention. She trusted Renee completely. That was the other side of Florence. She had a clear division in her mind between the people who handled practical things and the people she loved, and she had placed Renee firmly in the first category. Renee handled the doctors and the visits and the bill payments and the coordination. Florence was grateful. She said so regularly. She said she didn't know what she would do without Renee. She said it at my birthday dinner, right before she said the thing about the rent money. I have thought about that sequence many times since. The gratitude first, then the pride, then the sentence that ended everything. She didn't know she was handing me the evidence. She thought she was giving me a gift. Before I tell you what happened at the dinner table, I want to tell you what my life in Richmond actually looked like. I moved there at 22 with 2 suitcases and a job offer, and the specific relief of someone leaving a house that had always been a little too loud for them. The apartment on the north side was not much. First floor, 1 bedroom. The radiator knocked in winter. The upstairs neighbor had a dog that paced after midnight, the sound of paws going back and forth above me, which I had found annoying for the first 6 months, and then found strangely companionable. The rent was $940. I paid it from my own account. I knew exactly what I had and what it cost, and what I needed to earn to stay even. And I kept a spreadsheet that I updated on the first of every month, with income on one side and expenses on the other. In 7 years, that spreadsheet had never been wrong. In 7 years, I had never missed a payment. That is the kind of person I became in Richmond. Someone who knew her numbers exactly. Not because she was afraid, but because knowing the numbers exactly meant nobody could tell her she was wrong about them. I had not known for 7 years that someone had been trying to help me. I had not known for 7 years that the help was not arriving. And I had not known until a birthday dinner in my 29th year what that meant about the people who were supposed to be passing it along. I went to work at the hospital network at 23. Medical billing. Most people do not find it interesting. I found it clarifying. You take a complex system, a patient account with dozens of moving parts, and you make it accurate. You find the dollar that did not go where it was supposed to go. You trace it backward. You bring it back. That is the whole job. And it turned out to be good preparation for a birthday dinner in my 29th year, though I did not know that at the time. I was good at it. I got better every year. By 27, I was handling disputed accounts that other billing specialists had given up on. Florence called every Sunday. She asked about the apartment. She asked about work. She asked if I was comfortable. I told her I was managing. I meant it. Managing was not a euphemism. It was a fact. I was paying my rent, building savings, keeping the numbers straight. I did not know she thought she was contributing to that management. I did not know anyone was thinking about me in those terms at all. There was one moment from childhood I think about sometimes. I was 13. Florence had sent me $200 for school supplies, a money order and a birthday card with her handwriting inside. She told me on the phone it was coming. She said she wanted me to have new things for the school year. The card arrived. The handwriting was there. The money order was not. I told my mother. She said Florence must have forgotten to include it. She said she would call and check. She said these things happen with older people. Small confusions, nothing to worry about. I never got the $200. I was 13. I did not know what to do with that information. There was no category for it yet. So I filed it in the place where children put things they cannot resolve, and I moved on. And I did not think about it again for 16 years. The second Florence said the words rent money I send every month, the $200 came back to me fully formed, not as a suspicion, as a pattern. The first data point in a series I had not known I was collecting. A money order when I was 13. $1,200 a month for 4 years. 2 points make a line. The line led directly to my mother. I had not thought about it in years. I thought about it the second Florence spoke. Florence arrived at my apartment at 6 o'clock, with a gift bag in one hand and her purse in the other. Todd, my boyfriend, carried her bag from the car. Florence patted his arm and called him a good boy, which she did every time she saw him, and Todd accepted this with the equanimity of a man who has decided that being called a good boy by someone's grandmother is not something to argue with. Florence handed me a small wrapped gift and then held my face in her hands for a moment, the way she always did when she hadn't seen me in a few months. She looked at me carefully. She said I looked tired, but good, which was Florence's way of saying she was glad I was here. My father Martin arrived 10 minutes later. He hugged me once, said happy birthday, asked about the drive, and went to find a chair near the window. He had a particular chair he always went to at this apartment, near the bookshelves, a little removed from the center of the room. I had noticed this over the years without naming it. Renee came last. She always came last because arriving last meant arriving to a room that was already arranged around you. She came in with the cake box and a bottle of Malbec and kissed Florence on the cheek and told me I looked wonderful and set the cake on the kitchen counter next to the birthday card that Florence had placed there when she arrived. The card was in a cream envelope with my name in Florence's handwriting. I had not opened it yet. I was saving it for after dinner, which was what I always did with Florence's cards, because I liked to read them when the room was quiet. That plan did not survive the evening. We sat at the table. Renee poured the wine. Martin passed the bread. Todd asked Florence about her garden, because Florence always had a garden and always wanted to talk about it. And because Todd had understood early on that the best thing you could do at a Merritt family dinner was ask Florence a question. It was a normal birthday dinner. Chicken and roasted potatoes. The birthday tablecloth with the small stain near one corner that had been there since 2019. The good wine glasses that came out for company. Renee talking about a renovation she was considering. Martin asking about my drive. The kind of dinner that feels like all the other birthday dinners. Until Florence set her purse down and reached into her gift bag. I brought something, she said. I want you to have a record. She put a folder on the table. It was an ordinary manila folder, the kind you buy in a pack of 25. But it was thick, heavy, the way files get when they've been added to over a long period of time. I print them every time, Florence said. The transfer confirmations, so you have a record in case anything goes wrong with the bank. 48 of them now. She smiled at me across the folder. That's 4 years of knowing you were safe, she said. I opened the folder. 48 pages. Each one a bank transfer confirmation. The date, the amount, the sender, the destination account. $1,200 each. I am a person who looks at numbers the way other people look at faces. Automatically, for information. My eyes went to the account number in the destination field before I had consciously decided to look for it. I know my own account number. I have known it for 7 years. I have it memorized the way I have all the numbers I work with memorized, without effort, the way you memorize something you use every single day. The account number on the page was not mine. I looked at it for a moment. Then I looked at the last 4 digits specifically. I looked at the second page. Same account number. Third page. Same. I went through 5 pages before I stopped, because 5 pages was enough to know that this was not an error on one confirmation. This was the account number Florence had been sending to for 4 years. My hands were steady. I work with numbers all day. Numbers do not make me shake. But the room got very quiet around me. The way it does when something is rearranging itself in your understanding and you are trying to let it finish before you speak. I thought about the Sunday calls. Florence asking about the apartment. Me saying I was managing. Her asking if the money helped. Me not knowing what she meant. Her taking my answer as confirmation that I had received it. 4 years of Sunday calls in which we were having 2 different conversations. I looked up at Florence. She was watching me with the expression of a woman who has given someone a gift and is waiting, with patience and love, to see their face when they open it. I almost said nothing. For 1 second I weighed the options the way I weigh account discrepancies at work. The cost of letting it go. The cost of naming it. What closing the folder would mean for the next Sunday call, and the one after that, and all the ones after that. What stopped me was not anger. It was the first page. The date in the top right corner. The month I moved into the apartment on the north side and paid my first month's rent at $940 and sat on the floor eating takeout because I didn't have furniture yet and made the calculation of whether I would make the second payment. That month, Florence had sent $1,200, not to my account, to someone who told her it was my account. For 4 years, on the first of every month, Florence had thought about me and sent $1,200 and gone on believing it arrived. And I had told her on Sundays I was managing, which was true, and she had heard that and thought, good, the money is working. 2 different conversations happening in the same phone call for 4 years. Someone had built that gap deliberately. Someone had arranged for Florence to believe she was helping and for me to have no idea I was supposed to be receiving anything, and that someone had been in this room tonight, coming in from the kitchen with a birthday cake and a box of matches. I had not seen $1 of it. For 1 second I considered closing the folder and putting it in my bag and dealing with it later. Alone, the way I dealt with most things. What stopped me was the date on the first page, 4 years ago. The same month I'd moved into the apartment on the north side and paid my first month's rent from my own account at $940 and worried about whether I'd make the second payment. She had been sending $1,200 a month for the entire time I had been living in Richmond. I had never seen a single dollar of it. "Grandma," I said, "what account number did you send this to?" Florence looked at the folder. She read the number out loud. I opened my banking app. I went to account details. I read my account number out loud. We both heard the difference. Florence's face did something slow, something that takes a long time to complete in a person who does not want to believe what they are hearing. I said I never got $1. The table went silent. My father, Martin, set his fork down. Todd put his hand flat on the table. Aunt Sylvia Keene, who had come as Florence's companion for the drive, stopped reaching for the bread. And from the kitchen came the sound of the cake box opening. Renee, cutting the birthday cake. Candles ready, coming in to make the room sing. She came through the kitchen doorway with the cake on a board and a box of matches in her hand, and the look of a woman arriving into her own arrangement. She read the table in 1 second. Something crossed her face. Fast, gone before anyone else would have caught it. But I had been watching her face at dinner tables my whole life, and I caught it. She stopped in the doorway. The cake had 5 candles. She had not lit them yet. "What's going on?" she said. She said it lightly, the way a person says something when they need to hear the shape of the problem before they decide how to hold it. I turned my phone toward her, my account number on the screen. Then I read the account number from Florence's folder out loud, the one on all 48 pages. Renee set the cake down on the end of the table. The candles shifted. She looked at the folder. She looked at Florence. She looked at me. I asked her one question. Whose account is that? She started with convenience, how Florence sometimes had difficulty with online banking, how she had offered to help manage the transfers temporarily just until Claire got settled, how it was meant to be a short-term arrangement. She used the word temporary 4 times in 3 minutes. Florence was looking at her daughter, not with anger, with something that is harder to watch than anger. The face of a woman doing arithmetic on 30 years of trust and finding the number wrong. Renee moved to reframe. She said she had passed the money along as needed. She said it had gone toward family expenses, general costs that Florence benefited from indirectly. She said Florence's comfort was funded by what the family managed together, and that redistributing within the family was not the same as keeping. She said the amounts were not significant in the context of what she managed for everyone. She was right about one thing. She did manage things. She had always managed things. She had managed Florence's trust, and Martin's agreement, and my absence, and the story she told about all three of us. She had managed it for 30 years, and it had worked, because nobody had ever compared notes at the same dinner table before. I let her talk. Every sentence made it clearer. Not to me. I had understood within 2 minutes of opening the folder. But to Florence, who was sitting very still with her hands in her lap, and to Aunt Sylvia, who had not moved since Renee came in, and to Todd, whose hand was still flat on the table, and to Martin, who was looking at the wall with the expression of a man waiting for a storm to pass that he knows he could have warned someone about. At the end, Renee said the sentence I wrote down afterward, word for word. I was doing what I do for this family. I was managing. Florence still said nothing. I said, 4 years. 48 months. $1,200 a month. I turned the last page of the folder toward her. $57,600. Renee looked at the number. She did not say anything else. Not because she had run out of words. Renee always had words. She stopped because she understood finally that no arrangement of those words was going to move the number on the page. The candles on the birthday cake were still unlit. Nobody reached for the matches. That night I did what I do at work when an account doesn't reconcile. I traced it. Florence sat at my kitchen table while I worked. I made her tea first, Earl Grey, the same kind she always had. She took the cup with both hands and held it without drinking for a while, which was something she did when she was thinking. I opened my laptop and started pulling the records. The apartment was quiet, in the way it's quiet late at night, the upstairs neighbor's dog not pacing yet. The street outside settled. I had turned the kitchen light on fully, so I could see the screen clearly. Florence watched me work without saying anything, which was something I appreciated about her. She understood that the work required attention. After about 15 minutes, she said, "How long does something like this take?" I said, "Not long. I know what I'm looking for." She said, "Do you do this at work?" I said, "Yes." I told her what medical billing was really, which was the tracing of money through complex systems to find the place where it had not gone where it was supposed to go. She listened to this with the focused attention she gave to things she wanted to understand. She said, "And you're good at it?" I said I was. She nodded once. The tea had cooled enough to drink, and she drank some of it. She looked out the kitchen window at the dark. She did not say anything else until I printed the copies. She gave me her banking login herself. She wrapped both hands around the cup and watched me open my laptop, and I didn't explain what I was doing, because she had already understood what needed to be done. She gave me her banking login herself. She said it without my asking. She just looked at the folder on the table and looked at me and said, "My login is the same as always. You set it up for me. Remember?" I remembered. 4 years ago, when Florence had trouble with the interface. I had walked her through it on the phone. I had been the one who helped her set up the automatic transfer in the first place. That thought landed, and I let it land, and then I put it aside and kept working. The tracing took 40 minutes. 48 transfers over 4 years. Each one went from Florence's savings account to a checking account registered to Renee Ashby at a bank 2 miles from my parents' house. Not a joint account, not a family account, a personal account in Renee's name only. On every date that a transfer left Florence's account, I checked my own records. Nothing arrived in mine. Not once. Not partial. Not delayed. The money had never been forwarded. It had never been in transit. It had gone to Renee's account, and it had been absorbed into whatever that account was used for, month after month, for 4 years. While Florence asked me on Sunday afternoons if I was comfortable, and I told her I was managing. I cross-referenced 3 more months to be certain. Then, I printed everything. 3 copies. 1 for Florence. 1 for Mr. Okafor at Florence's bank, who Florence called herself before I had finished printing, because Florence at 78 was not a woman who needed to be told what to do when someone had stolen from her. one for the civil attorney I would contact Monday morning. I added up the total one more time, even though I already knew it. $57,600. 48 months of someone believing she was keeping me safe. I had the folder with the 48 transfer confirmations. I had Florence's bank. Florence gave me her login herself, sitting at my kitchen table after the dinner, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea I had made her. Every transfer, for 4 years, had gone to a checking account in Renee's name. Not a joint account. Not a family account. A personal checking account registered to Renee Ashby at a bank branch 2 miles from my parents' house. I cross-referenced the dates against my own bank records. On every date that a transfer left Florence's account, nothing arrived in mine. Not a delay. Not a partial amount. Nothing. The money had never been redirected. It had never been forwarded. It had gone to Renee's account, and it had stayed there. I printed everything. 3 copies. One for Florence. One for Mr. Okafor at Florence's bank, who Florence had already called by the time I finished printing, because Florence, at 78, was not confused about what had just happened to her. One for the civil attorney I would contact Monday morning. $57,600. Not borrowed. Not mismanaged. Taken, there is something about Renee that I have spent time understanding. Not to forgive it, to see it accurately. She believed she was managing the family. In her version of what happened, the money was not theft. It was a reallocation within a system she administered. Florence had more than enough. Claire had a job. The amounts were not significant in the context of everything Renee handled, and Renee was the one who called Florence every week, who took her to appointments, who made sure the bills were paid. In her internal accounting, that service had value. The value entitled her to discretion over where Florence's generosity landed. She had been running this calculation for so long that it had become invisible to her. It was not something she decided consciously on the first of every month. It was something she had decided years ago, and which simply continued month after month, because no one had ever put the 2 account numbers next to each other at the same table. She was wrong. What she did was theft by any name that matters, but she did not see herself as a thief. She saw herself as the person who kept everything running. And that is the most useful thing I can tell you about how families like mine stay intact for so long. The person doing the damage is often also the person doing the most visible work. What happened next I want to tell you as the 4 things they were, not as a list, as the 4 things. The first happened 3 days later. Florence called Renee. I was not on the call. Florence told me about it afterward, in the flat, precise way Florence described things that had cost her something. She said Renee had cried. She said Renee had explained about the family finances, about Martin's situation, about pressures Florence didn't know about. She said Renee had said she had meant to tell her. Florence listened to all of it. When Renee finished, Florence said one sentence. She said, "You used my love for Claire as a wallet." Then she said she needed some time. Then she hung up. The second happened 2 weeks later. Martin called me. I let it go to voicemail. He left a message that was 3 minutes long. He said the family was going through something difficult. He said he hoped I would consider what reconciliation could look like. He said Renee was sorry. He said it the way men say things their wives have asked them to say, with the specific hollowness of borrowed words. I kept the voicemail. I did not call back. The third happened the following month. Florence's bank opened a formal dispute, with Mr. Okafor handling the documentation. The civil attorney sent a demand letter to Renee for the full amount. Renee's attorney responded. The amount was not disputed. The characterization was. It took 4 months to settle. The settlement was for $57,600, paid in full. The payment came in 2 installments. I know this because Florence told me, on a Sunday afternoon call in the fall, sitting at her kitchen table, the same way she always sat when she had something to tell me. Her voice was the voice of a woman who is sad and clear at the same time. She said she was glad it was over. She said she hoped I was, too. I said I was working on it. She said that was honest, and she appreciated honesty more than she used to. The fourth was small. Todd, the night of the birthday dinner, after everyone had left, and I was sitting at the kitchen table with the folder open in front of me. He made tea. He set a cup next to the folder. He sat down across from me and didn't say anything for a few minutes. Then he said, "She counted every one. 48 pages. She thought you were safe because of her." He said it quietly. Not to make me feel something, just because it was true and he thought it should be said. He was right. She had counted every one. She had opened each confirmation email, printed it, put it in the folder, and labeled the folder with my name. 48 times over 4 years she had done that, thinking she was building a record for me. She had built a record. It just turned out to be a record of something different than she thought. I looked at the folder. I didn't say anything. But I heard it. I kept hearing it for a long time after. 3 months later, Florence and I still have our Sunday calls. They are the same in structure. 2 in the afternoon, her time. She still sets the reminder, she told me, even though she told me she didn't need it anymore. But they are different inside. The worry is gone, not the love. The love is the same. Possibly larger, the way things get larger when they've been tested and came through. But the specific weight of a woman worrying about whether her granddaughter is eating and sleeping and paying her bills on time, that is gone. Because now she knows. She has seen the apartment. She came to Richmond in February. 3 days. She slept in the second bedroom that I use as an office, on the pull-out sofa I dragged from the side of the road 2 years ago, and which is actually more comfortable than it looks. We walked through the neighborhood. I showed her the coffee shop where I go on Saturday mornings. She met Todd properly, not at a dinner table in the middle of an event, but in my kitchen making eggs on a Sunday morning, which is a better way to meet someone. She said on the second day, "It's a good apartment. You made it good." I said it was fine. She said, "No, you made it yours. That's different from fine." On the Sunday calls now, she asks about Todd. She asks about the billing dispute I've been working on, because she remembers details. She asks about the neighbor with the dog I mentioned once, who paces at midnight. Last Sunday, she said, "I should have called you directly. Every time." I said, "You trusted the people you were supposed to trust." She said, "Yes, but you were the one I was trying to help." The line went quiet. I stayed on it with her for a while, the two of us in our separate cities. The Sunday afternoon going quiet around us in the way it does, when there is nothing left to say that hasn't been said. It was the right kind of quiet, the kind that means something has been resolved. On the night of my birthday, after everyone left and Todd had washed the dishes and Florence was in a car back to her hotel, I opened the card. It was still on the kitchen counter where she had placed it when she arrived. Cream, envelope. My name in her handwriting. I sat at the kitchen table with it. I had been doing other things for the past several hours. My mind had been on numbers and documents and the civil attorney's name I needed to look up and what Mr. Okafor would need from Florence's records. All the practical things. All the work. I sat with the envelope for a moment before I opened it. Then I opened it. Florence's handwriting. Careful and shaky, the way it had been getting for the past 2 years. She bore down harder now to make the letters clear. You could see the effort in the ink. She had written one line inside. "The rent money I send keeps me from worrying about you." She had written it before the dinner, before she knew. She had sat at her own table, probably in the morning before she got ready to come over, and she had written it because for 4 years she had believed it was true. I sat with it for a long time. The card was not evidence. It had no legal value. It didn't prove anything that the bank records didn't already prove more precisely. But it said something the bank records couldn't say. It said that for 4 years, on the first of every month, Florence had thought about me. She had thought, "Claire needs this." And she had sent it. and she had gone on believing it arrived. She had worried about me, and then relieved her own worry, and gone on about her life. The money never reached me. But the intention was perfect. The intention was exactly right. I put the card in my desk drawer, next to the folder with the 48 pages. Not because I needed to keep it with the documentation, because it was hers, and it was mine, and it had been true when she wrote it even if the money never came. She tried. And when she found out the truth, at a birthday dinner, from a sentence she said with pride, she didn't protect anyone who didn't deserve protecting. She picked up her phone and called her bank while I was still printing copies. That is Florence. And that is the only inheritance I needed. If this one landed for you tonight, you know what it's really about. It is not the $57,000. It is the 48 pages a grandmother kept in a folder because she wanted her granddaughter to have a record. It is what love looks like when someone is using it as cover. It is what happens when the person being fooled is also the person who loves you most. And when the truth comes out not because of a plan or a scheme, but because a grandmother sat at a birthday dinner and said something proud. Florence did not engineer the moment. She just told the truth about what she had been doing. And the truth landed exactly where it needed to land. Drop a comment and let me know if this one hit close. Subscribe for the next one. I will see you there.